And welcome back to Studio B here with Fox 13's Unscripted. I have a special guest here today. His name is Demetrius Branca. And welcome, Demetrius. So nice to meet you.
Thanks, Mark.
Here from Tallahassee. He's been traveling the state for something that's very important to your heart. You lost your son to distracted driving.
Yeah, that's right. My son Anthony was 19, a month short of his 20th birthday, when his life was cut short by someone who was paying attention to their phone instead of driving.
No, I can't imagine the pain that you and your family are still going through. But this has got to be one of those things where the word for me, aside from all the pain and heartache that I'm sure you have, is just frustrating, because this has got to be to the point where we're going to go over some numbers too. Hillsborough County, you guys are on notice with some of the worst numbers in the state and actually the entire country. We're going to talk about Florida in a second, how that plays into effect. But this just seems like one of those things. It's like so frustrating that it didn't even really have to happen.
It is very preventable. Like, this is something that's common sense, right? When you're doing the most dangerous thing you're going to do in your life, unless you are, in special forces or something like that,
right,
the most dangerous thing that we do is get in our cars and drive. And for people to take that so lightly and not give it a second thought when they pick up their phone to do their Amazon shopping or do a Netflix or whatever people are doing on their phone, it's really frustrating. But perhaps the more frustrating part is that our elected leaders have been unwilling to do anything about it. To me, that's a shortfall in leadership.
I agree with that, especially here in Florida. 31 other states have passed more restrictive laws than Florida has. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the progress you've made there as well. But you have this Driving for Change for Safer Streets. You're literally touring the state right now.
Literally, yes.
On behalf of your son and hoping to save some other lives. The Anthony Phoenix Branca Foundation. It's pretty inspiring, and it's again, I'm sorry you have to go through this, but it is inspiring to see you so passionate about this, because I know you've said before that your son would be pleased with what you're doing.
Yeah, I'm thankful that it's inspiring. I didn't want to be an inspiring person. That's not what my goal was. I just wanted to be a dad. I love my boys, and for my best friend, Anthony was my best friend, and for my best friend's life to be cut short, and he was such a great person. He just, my best friend. When I tell you this, I mean, like, we could look at each other and know what the other one was thinking and immediately start laughing because we're just that tight. And so that loss in my life has left a huge gap, and it's just nothing that's anybody should go through. It's just unfair to the core. It's just unfair.
He was 19. He would have just had his 30th birthday recently, right?
Right.
Tell me some more about him.
Anthony was a musician. He played the saxophone. He played the guitar. He played drums. He was an artist. He could write. He was a great son, but also probably the best big brother I could imagine. The way he was with kids was just incredible. He was a camp counselor at a local overnight summer camp where the kids adored him. I witnessed it with my own eyes. The kids just flocked to him.
Not just a dad speaking.
Not right. No,
Yeah.
it's there's evidence of this. Yeah. I've had maybe a dozen or more people tell me since his death that he was their best friend. I've gotten letters and notes from people that just are heartbroken because this person is gone who they used to be able to count on for advice, for solace, or just for a fun afternoon on a Tuesday when they didn't know what else to do. Yeah. Anthony just seemed to have a knack for knowing what any given situation needed and a talent for providing whatever that situation needed. So he was always welcome on anything I was doing, whether it was a grocery trip, or oftentimes he would accompany me to his little brother's soccer games, and we would just sit behind the goal and just talk about life and what was going on the field and cheering on our boy. And I miss that. And he was just a all around just beautiful human.
Yeah, I can see it in your eyes and hear it in your heart. I know you were here in Pasco County recently, and most recently have done Hillsborough and Pinellas. We're going to talk a little bit about the effect that you're having on our local legislators as well. First, though, I want to give you a little bit more background on what Anthony's doing. Ariel Placencia sat down with you not too long ago, has a little bit more about your Pasco County visit. Here's Ariel.
I know Anthony, which I do. I believe that he's a force of nature right now, and he's cheering me on. And
that's Demetrius Branca speaking about his late son, Anthony. 10 years ago, the teenager was on his motorcycle, heading to class at Tallahassee State College.
But he never made it there.
The 19-year-old was hit from behind, his father says, and killed by a distracted driver.
Obviously, that day changed my life forever and set me on the path that I am on now.
That path brought this Tallahassee resident to Pasco County Tuesday and will eventually take him to Hillsborough and Pinellas counties later this week. Why? He wants to speak to as many lawmakers as possible to get them to pass a statewide hands-free law. Some 30 states and Washington, D.C. already have those laws in place, which allow you to use GPS and make calls using hands-free technology.
Hands-free is the compromise. We need to get people's phones out of their hands and as much as possible keep their eyes on the road.
Currently, there are 2 existing statutes in Florida, but they're specifically for texting and driving only. Branca did help pass the state's current law, but he and other advocates want something stricter, something easier for law enforcement to enforce.
It focuses so specifically on inputting things on your phone that it ignores all of the other myriad distractions that a phone provides.
Data released last year shows 1 in 7 crashes involve distracted drivers. Branca and other supporters pushed hard for a hands-free law during the 2024 legislative session, but those efforts stalled out. So that's why he was in Pasco County Tuesday, to honor the memory of his teenage son, who he knows is cheering him on.
I want to hear him lean down into me and say, "Dad, that's how you live life. That's a life well lived, and I'm proud of you." And that's
in Pasco County. Ariel Placencia.
That's what I'm going for. That's my aim.
Fox 13 News.
Those pictures are something to see you guys together.
Yeah, that picture of Anthony with the funny hat on is my favorite picture of him. His smile, the way he's looking at the camera, it's as close as I can imagine to capturing someone's spirit in a photograph. He was just that kind of person.
Yeah. If you're up for it, I want you to tell us about the accident. I want you to tell us a little bit about what that was like going through that and your progress. We're going to talk about Florida because Florida's a mess compared to our other states. Folks, Floridians, we should not be proud of these numbers. We have some stuff from Cambridge Mobile Telematics. We're going to go over a lot of that. We appreciate you coming by. Don't move. We have Demetrius Branca talking about distracted driving, and he knows from the heart that we need to do something here in Florida, folks. We'll be right back. And welcome back to Studio B with Unscripted. Our guest tonight, Demetrius Branca, who is on a statewide tour, so to speak, talking with our local legislators and talking with our influencers, influencing them as well, because you lost your son to distracted driving. It's been almost 10 years, just over 10 years.
It's been over 10 years, just over 10 years, yeah.
What do you remember about getting the call and what happened specifically with him?
Man, that obviously was a rough day. I was at work. It was a Friday. I had seen Anthony that morning on his way to his job at a bagel shop. And I told him I loved him, and I told him to be careful because I knew he was getting on that motorcycle. And I told him, I'm not worried about you. It's the other people on the road that I'm worried about. And it was prophetic, you know. He was wearing his motorcycle. He was wearing gloves. He was following all the rules. He uses his blinker. He was a good person and following all the rules and doing all the stuff. But he left to go to his bagel shop job. And then sometime around noon, he left to go to the community college. I was at work. I didn't get a phone call till sometime around 3. I was in a meeting, and law enforcement called me and asked me a couple of questions and then said they were coming to my workplace, which is unusual. And at that point, they hadn't told me anything. So I just didn't know what was going on. And when they showed up, I kind of broke down. I went home and everything was different. The whole world had changed at that point. And that's when I found out that Anthony had been run over from behind by a work van. And he died within 20, 30 minutes. It was a rough day, to say the least.
And the moment that, not that it probably made it any worse or easier, but the moment you found out that the authorities thought he was either using his phone or distracted, what was that like?
Honestly, it took a little while to figure it out. Because what happened is the guy in the van never swerved, never hit his brakes. He hit Anthony. The motorcycle stuck in the front of the van, and Anthony went under the wheels, and the van coasted to a stop. And I couldn't figure it out. I was like, why would that? And then slowly but surely, it was like, well, was he just not looking? And the problem was partially that the driver told the police a couple of different stories. He said, well, he saw Anthony use his blinker. He saw the motorcycle. But then somehow he still hit it and ran over Anthony. So it took a little while. But once I pieced all of that together, it's obvious. It's so obvious. He was driving. He was probably in a hurry to get to his next job. He was looking at his phone. He hit Anthony and then ran him over, and his head popped up, and he thought to himself, expletive, look what I've done, and coasted to a stop. And Anthony died there in the streets.
I'm so sorry to hear that. I do appreciate you sharing that, though, because this is, for good reason, obviously something that your new passion, your new goal in life is to change lives and save lives and prevent tragedies like that from happening again.
Yeah. Yeah, listen, man, I wish I hadn't found this passion. My life's goal was to just be a good dad, watch my kids grow up. And part of what makes this 10-year anniversary of Anthony's death so difficult is he would be turning 30. He would have turned 30 on December 7th. We had a birthday party for him at my house. But the thought of him as a dad, man, that's like a dagger, you know. I had just an image a few days before his birthday. I had an image of him sitting on the floor near the Christmas tree with, you know, two little kids in his lap, and the little kids had freckles on their nose just like he did, and that shook me because there, but for the grace of God, go I. You know, if this person hadn't made such a terrible decision that day, Anthony would still be here, and maybe I would be a grandpa. And I think that is truly my passion. You know, I think I'm truly meant to be a grandpa, but I'm not so far, and I think that is. It's just another way that this grief and this pain kind of manifests itself in my life. It's changing. It's not the same. I'm not imagining my teenage son anymore. Now I'm imagining a 30-year-old man who may have a family and may be married and may have the job of his dreams and may be a lot of things, but I don't have that. And that is missing in this world. That light, that force of nature is just not here present.
And Anthony did have a little brother?
He actually has two little brothers.
Yeah.
One is my son, Isaac,
Okay.
who is turning 21 in a few weeks. And the other one is from his mom's new family, and his name is Christopher. And Anthony was a brilliant, brilliant older brother. Those boys adored him. They thought he was a god. They just wanted to spend time with him all the time. They emulated him. They mimicked him. It was so beautiful. It was just such a fun thing to see. It was just such a joy to behold and be around.
I do appreciate you sharing that. It's hard to hear, you know, it's hard to hear the heartache that you have for something that the numbers show this from the states that have enacted laws where you cannot be touching your phone when you're driving. We can still talk on them. We now have talk to text.
Right.
So there aren't that many excuses anymore while somebody needs to be holding their phone in their hand while they're driving. And I know that's where you're hoping this goes, right?
That is exactly where I'm hoping this goes. I want people to put their phones down while they're driving. And I'll be honest with you, some of the statistics that Ariel and I talked about, the 1 in 7 crashes, stuff like that, is vastly undercounting the number of crashes that are caused by distractions. A couple of little evidence points to help you understand. A few years ago, there was a study done by, I can't remember, I should be better at this, but it was like AAA or State Farm or one of those large agencies. They put cameras in people's cars and they just left them there for a year. And in the first month, people kind of knew that there was a camera there, so they adjusted the way they behaved. But after a month or so, they kind of forgot that there was cameras in the car, and they reverted back to their old behaviors. And what that study found is something insane. It was like 60% of all rear-end collisions had the person, the driver of the car, looking at their phone in the minute before they crashed. That should say something. 60%. That's a lot of rear-end collisions caused by distraction. The other thing is what you were mentioning before. In states that have passed hands-free laws where you can't pick up your phone while driving, they have seen an immediate reduction in traffic fatalities, in some cases up to 25%. In Ohio, when they did this, they saw an immediate reduction before they even started handing out tickets. They did a 6-month grace period where they were only giving out warnings. And the rate of people dying on Ohio roads dropped precipitously. And that, to me, says exactly what we all need to hear. This is an effective law. It's hitting the nail on the head, and it's something that we as Floridians need to demand from our legislative.
And Oregon too had the big drop off, right?
Yeah, huge. Yeah. And they have a huge fine in their state. It's like $1,000 to be caught using your phone while you're driving. Right. And that adds to it too. And
for somebody watching, say, well, wait a minute, it's illegal to text and drive in Florida. Well, it is, but police officers can't pull you over for that, right?
Right. They know it. So there's a sheriff in Central Florida, one of our neighbors here in Central Florida, who called the current law as useless as memories on a boar hog.
Oh boy.
And I couldn't agree more.
Yep.
It's unenforceable. It's so specific to texting that it ignores everything else. And it's so difficult for law enforcement officers who already have so much of a burden on their shoulders to try to discern what that person was doing in their car. It's an impossible task that we're asking of people that are already overtaxed.
Hillsborough County, by the way, the highest traffic fatality rate in the country with 67.6 deaths per 100,000 residents. In the country, folks, in the country. We're going to talk a little bit more about Florida, maybe some progress you hope to have made recently, much more with Demetrius Branca on behalf of your son, Anthony, when we come right back tomorrow. And welcome back to Studio B with Fox 13's Unscripted. I'm here with our special guest, Demetrius Branca from Tallahassee, who lost his son 10 years ago to a distracted driver. I know you've been speaking with a number of influencers and county commissioners, city commissioners, state leaders as well, because Florida doesn't have much of a law regarding distracted driving. But you think maybe there's a chance, because they actually had a law in Anthony's name last year. Never made it to the Senate, though, right?
That's right.
Or they had a bill, I'm sorry. Had a bill, never became law.
Right. There was a bill in the House that it was assigned to 3 committees in the House, and it blew through all of them, unopposed, unanimous, bipartisan support. People on those committees were saying, I thought we had this, and my sister got rear-ended, and my husband got rear-ended, and my friend's daughter got wrecked by a distracted driver, and they were kind of in shock, really. So it went through the House unopposed, no kickback at all. But in the Senate, there's one senator who was the chair of a committee, and he just didn't want to hear it, and so it died and never made any progress.
But you made some contact with him. Maybe there's hope for revision, right?
Yeah, I think there's hope. I think I hopefully got past his defenses and was able to speak to him, dad to dad, man to man, and kind of get past some of that distance that I think elected leaders in high positions feel. They feel a distance to their constituents. And I think I was able to bridge that gap and really kind of bring Anthony's story to him so he could see that reflected in his own family. And I'm hopeful that we'll make something happen.
Well, we know there's support. We've seen some of the studies, and we know it's gone well in some other states. So I am anxious to see if where this does go, because hopefully there is more support out there than some of these senators do believe. I mean, you don't even have to have a relative or a family member be involved in an accident to see it. I live in St. Pete, but I drive to Tampa sometimes 4 times a day when I go home for dinner, and I'm in a truck, so I'm elevated above half the cars. Every other car on our bridges has a driver on their phones.
Yeah, it's
almost all the time.
It's crazy to me. And maybe it's because I've been shook by what happened to Anthony, but I won't even talk on my phone. To me, the law that we're trying to pass is the compromise. To me, I don't touch my phone. I set it up before I leave, and if I have to make a call, if I have to adjust my maps, if I have to change my playlist, I will pull over. Because to me, it's terrifying. The idea of hurting someone else because of my decision to pick up my phone is terrifying.
For somebody watching saying, yeah, maybe, he's changed my mind, or I do agree with him, what can people do? What can viewers do?
The first thing I would say is please, 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 please put your phone down. Please put your phone down. Anything that you're doing on the phone, nothing you're doing on your phone is worth risking your life or someone else's life, and I can't even imagine what it would be like to kill someone else and then have to live on. So please, please put your phones down. The other thing that I would say is call your elected representatives. Call the people in your county commission. Call your local representative to the Florida House. Call your senator. Call them. Tell them that this is important, that this is killing people, and that we need to put a stop to it.
APB, because his middle name was Phoenix, right?
That's right.
Anthony Phoenix Branca was his name. So APB Foundation. That's how we can find you on socials and online as well.
That's right.
All right. Well, hopefully we'll keep up with your progress as
Yeah.
well, and hopefully we'll see you again sometime soon. I want to thank you for coming and sharing your story. I know it's not easy because this is, but I know it's important to you, and it's important to a lot of other people as well. I know.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I want to thank you for giving me this opportunity. I feel like having a megaphone like this to tell Anthony's story is going to have an impact. And no matter how difficult it is for me personally, I wouldn't be able to sleep with I wouldn't be able to go to sleep at night if I didn't feel like I was leaving everything on the field. I just can't do anything else. And in a way, I'm thankful to Anthony for that. It's a blessing and a curse, that desire to just keep going.
You are welcome back anytime. Best of luck to you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks again. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on TV.